Good evening, I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August the 4th, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting of the Nicholas County Board of Education. I call the meeting to order at this time. I'm really about let's back up. I'd like to call this the April the 4th, 2022 meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in moment of silent reflection? It gives us an opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also to clear our hearts and minds for the business we're going to talk about here tonight. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The first order of business on our agenda tonight is to approve the minutes for the meeting held on March the 21st, 2022. Are there any questions in regard to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting held on March the 21st, 2022? Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion? Second. Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to the minutes for the meeting held on March the 21st, 2022? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 4 on this evening's agenda is the discussion of discussion items and presentation. Update on Teen Court, Officer Aaron Evans and Teen Court Coordinator Hope Tetrick.
I want to start off by saying thank you, guys. I've been privileged to stand before this board several times before, but in another capacity. And this time I'm in a very special role, and I want to thank you guys for the opportunity you've given me to speak this evening. So what is teen court? Teen court is an alternative to the traditional juvenile justice system, and it's backed by the West Virginia state law. If you would, pass these out to Kim. The way the state law reads, part of it, in any county or municipality that chooses to institute a teen court program, in accordance with the provisions of this section, any juvenile who is alleged to have committed a status offense or an act of delinquency, which would be a misdemeanor if committed by an adult, or in the case of a violation of a municipal ordinance, an offense over which municipal courts have concurrent jurisdiction and who is otherwise subject to the provision of this article may be given the option of proceeding the teen court program as an alternative to the filing of a formal petition. In other words, teen court is something different than what we've seen so many times before. It's an alternative to magistrate court. Every year, the schools are flooded with tobacco and marijuana use inside. Every year, law enforcement officers send dozens of citations and juvenile referrals to the magistrate court. If a 15-year-old gets caught using tobacco on school property and receives a citation, who pays the fine? Is it the 15-year-old boy or mommy and daddy? If the teenager causes vandalism to the bathroom or school property, who pays the fine? It's usually the mom and dad who pays the fine. The same is true for bringing drugs or alcohol to school or stealing something. It's always the parents who gets the kids out of trouble, and it's not the parents who did the dumb stuff. The kids are the one who need to be held responsible, and that is the philosophy of what teen court is. We hold the teenagers responsible and accountable for their own actions. Now, of course, if the teenager, the parent, does not wish to pursue teen court, then the referral will go back to the magistrate, the officer, or the charging agency. It's a deferral program like family treatment court or drug court. Once a juvenile completes the program, the charges are dismissed. Now, the program itself is made up of teenagers. The prosecuting attorney is a teenager, the defense attorney is a teenager, the jury is made up of teenagers, the clerk and the bailiff are made of teenagers. The judge is a member of the Bar Association of West Virginia, so they're in charge over that. They preside over it. And we have two judges in our circuit, and that is James P.K. Milam and Kathleen Murphy. The defendant is brought into teen court with a presumption of guilt, that they're already, it's more like a sentencing hearing than anything. So they're brought in, and the offense is read by the prosecuting attorney. And the prosecuting attorney decides what sanctions to bring against the youth. It's never a fine. And I like that. Usually it's, with every one of them, it has to do with, we always have community service added into the sanctions. But other sanctions added can be reports and essays, apology letters to any number of people involved, counseling services, and drug and alcohol and tobacco cessation programs. So that's what teen court does in the long run. Now, I personally would like to invite Dr. Donna Burge-Tetrick, President Dr. Gus Penix, Vice President Fred Amick, Philip Berry, Roy Moose, and Libby Kaufman to attend our next teen court hearing. And that's going to be tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. It'll be at the courthouse in the courtroom. And it would be our honor if you could attend. Myself and the coordinator, Hope Tetrick, we've been working very hard on this program. We spent a lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of aggravation. But we've got this program up and running, and it has become a great program. When it comes to working with kids, and I know you all have a passion for children, which is why you're here. Not every kid needs to be put through the court system. Not every kid who gets in trouble needs to go through the magistrate. Not every kid needs a citation, needs to be put on probation. Not every kid needs to go through that. They need to be held accountable and learn from their actions. If they need help getting off of drugs, which my new role as a juvenile probation officer in the county, I can tell you there is a lot of teenagers who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. More than I could ever imagine before. They need charged for every time. They need help. More than anything else, they need help. And that's what this program does. And I feel that we're helping these kids instead of just punishing them. We're helping them get a start in their lives. We're giving them a second chance. So I want to thank you guys for giving me an opportunity to speak to you this evening. And I know for your love for the children of the county. So if you guys have any questions, myself or Hope will gladly take any questions you have.
I do.
Yes, sir.
This is truly a situation where they're appearing before a jury of their peers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does this involve both of our high schools?
It involves both of the high schools and both of the middle schools.
All four of the secondary.
The way the law reads, it's not an age specific, but grade specific. So it falls between the grades of 7th and 12th. Without going into a lot of detail, I can say that we had an 18-year-old student who got in trouble for an offense that would leave them with a criminal record. This juvenile is still in high school, so that the juvenile does not start their life with a criminal record. They have a chance.
Now, so they're appearing. This is tomorrow night. Is this your first one this year?
No, it's not.
Okay.
This is
so this is kind of an ongoing thing, and so as you build up the number of cases to appear before you throughout the year, and then
this program had started a couple years ago, and it was going fairly strong until that COVID decided to knock things out of disarray, and the program had to stop, but the referrals from some of the officers, some of the deputies, still kept coming through. So the referrals were kept being built up without having the hearings. And now we're, I think our first hearing, what date was that oldest referral? Like September?
Yeah, it was from September of 2021 was the earliest referral that we had.
So we're still trying to get caught up, and we're in the process of having an endless supply of community service personnel. So we forgot to mention this one. We talked with the sheriff's department. They work for teen court. You know, we give them an overtime rate, and they come out on their days off to supervise the teenagers as they're doing community service somewhere, whether it be cleaning the courthouse from top to bottom, picking up trash outside. This past weekend, they got to work at the Memorial Park. So I've enlisted the help of the Army Corps of Engineers at the lake. So we're going to have teenagers out there picking up trash and trying to clean some of the debris out. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's a lot of workers who are going to be doing it.
How many hearings do you have in one day? Like tomorrow, you said 5. Will you have another one after that?
We've been only having 2 hearings a night whenever we have our hearings.
I mean, from what we've had so far, we feel like 3 would really be pushing it. Because we don't want to keep the kids very long, especially on a school night. So we try to have them out of there by 7 o'clock. So we've been doing 2 hearings a night, and we just try to have them, you know, a couple every month. And hopefully we can get through what's been backed up, and then that way we can just start having them as they come in.
And these teenagers have blown me away with their professionalism and the way they're rationalizing the cases. The argument of just a few hours difference, and they have great reasoning behind. Well, I think this kid needs to have 18 hours. Well, I think this kid needs to have 21 hours. Well, why? Well, because they already faced this punishment at home, and they already went to ALC, or the Learning Center, so they don't need to have as much punishment. Well, but they've done it before, so their arguing is amazing.
Yeah, I get to go back in the brain room with the students, which is a real treat because I love watching and seeing how their brain works and seeing the reasoning behind some of the things that they're choosing for these kids. It's a really great program. I'm so excited to be a part of it. I think it's going to be really good for the kids in our county. So.
Does this take place or eliminate expulsions when they get in? They can still be expelled until their hearing, or
this is the criminal aspect of what happens.
Has nothing to do with the school. Okay.
So who makes the referrals?
The referrals can be made from law enforcement, any law enforcement, but it can also be made by school administrators. So the principals of the schools can actually do the referrals because it happened in their schools. I've received a couple of them from a few principals. Vaping is always the biggest issue, and I'm sure you guys have heard all about the vaping problems that have happened. So vaping is always an issue, but we're also having other issues with marijuana and the THC being brought into the schools. So the law enforcement have had a couple deputies outside of school, outside of the school resource officers, send me the referrals, and that's what they. So it's not just school. If any deputy, any NRP, any state police, any city police, they can also do the referrals. It doesn't have to be at the school.
Well, noticed on the form it said parent also. And, you know, I think that's great that the kids are being held responsible instead of the parents taking, you know, all the brunt of it. Because I think if they realize at a younger age that they're going to be held accountable for their actions, that hopefully will help them to deter them from, you know, doing things like that again, or even worsening what they are doing as they get older.
Yeah, that's exactly what this program is. We want to make sure that, you know, these kids who are in trouble realize, like, hey, there is real consequences for my actions, but in turn that they're not going into their adult life with a criminal record or, you know, feeling burnt by the judicial system and think, okay, well, I'm just going to keep acting out. So we want to try to prevent that and make them good, upstanding citizens.
It's also a great tool for the other kids involved. Because I need to have volunteers from the schools to play the part of the jury, to play the part of the clerk or the attorneys. And they get to experience court system from the positive side. And I've enlisted the help of the JROTC, and they play the part of the bailiff. So tomorrow night, whenever you guys show up, you'll see that there'll be a couple JROTC members in their dress blues, and they're going to get up there and they're going to do the part of the bailiff. I've had the help of some of the bailiffs, some of the deputies who have taught them how to be bailiffs, and they're thinking about different jobs in the future. One girl told me the other day, she said, "I never thought about being an attorney, but I might have a future in law." That's pretty cool, you know.
What is the reaction of parents? I would think they'd be delighted that they're not having to actually go into the court system.
Once I explain why their kids are getting the letters 6 months later, they like the idea of giving their kid a second chance. The other parents, they love the idea of giving their kids something positive to work forward. Every kid who participates gets community service hours. So kids that are trying to applying to college, they need X amount of community service hours. Or kids that are doing the National Honor Society, they need a certain amount of community service hours, and this program provides that. So I've talked to a lot of parents, and they've enjoyed their idea. They said their kid, when you come tomorrow, you will also sign a confidentiality agreement. Everyone who comes to the court hearing signs a confidentiality agreement that you're not to talk about the aspect of the case. Just like in regular court. There's some things that are confidential you don't need to spread around on social media. A few of the parents, they've called me, or I've just talked to them, and they said, "I've never seen my kid keep a secret that well. They will not tell me what is going on at all." And I said, "Well, I'm proud of them."
Well, I think it's a good program. It's like the old saying is, you do the crime, you do the time.
Right.
And I think they respect their peers, maybe a little more than another generations, because they're with them. And they need to be responsible. Responsibility is the name of the game for all of us.
So are these only for the students who admit that they had the vague or that they admitted it? It's not for the student who says, "I did not do this." It's
right.
For the one who's already said,
that's
"I've
correct.
done it," so now, the appropriate punishment has been decided by a jury of the peers.
They're not trying to find guilt and innocence.
Yes, I think it's wonderful.
Now, when they're referred by an officer, they still have the option to either agree to the teen court or not. And
Correct.
that doesn't have to be okayed by the parent.
Yes.
What about repeat offenders?
I'm sorry?
What if you have repeat offenders?
Well, that's going to be up to the discretion of the officer doing the referral. If it's a kid who brought marijuana to school once, after he does our program, he probably won't do it again. Spending every Saturday cleaning up at the dog pound will start to get tiring. Or picking up filth and trash at the lake or at the ball field starts to get annoying, especially on your social weekends. So far we haven't had any repeat offenders, which is fantastic. But I will hear, just like I would definitely hear a repeat offender. Some kids need I personally, whenever I was growing up, I needed a second and third chance just so I could, I'm kind of stubborn. Now after a while, after probably your third or fourth or fifth or more, then it's probably going to go to where you just need to go to the magistrate court, probably start looking at some actual criminal offenses. And if they do not wish to admit to the guilt, that wasn't my marijuana, I didn't break the cell phone, whatever the offense is, then it will go back to the magistrate. Then it will go back to the circuit court. and we'll go from there. And as a juvenile probation officer, I don't believe at any time that my job is going to be in jeopardy of ending.
Any further questions? This has been most interesting, and I thank you all for coming this evening, Officer Evans and Mrs. Teapick, and sharing with us, and look forward to seeing this in action.
We're excited about it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, is this open to all public or just invited?
Right now, just for invited. I don't. That doesn't need to be an actual spectacle.
Yeah, confidentiality.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Also this evening, we have with us Pat Doversfike, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Norval Clark. They're going to update us on High Rocks. If you would come to the podium, please.
Want me to hand out your handouts?
Yeah.
Please. You have to excuse me, it's spring training and I'm from the Bay Area, so my Giants.
Yeah. That's all right.
Okay, you should be receiving a handout or a PowerPoint presentation that basically describes High Rocks Steel Studios, which I think this board, school board is fully aware of. Basically what we're doing is we're restarting. Again, my name is Norval Clark, this is Pat Doversfike. She's the executive director of the Nicholas County Resource and Drop-In Center. I'm the executive director of an organization called Five Rivers Cooperative. We are, if you look at this front page, we have partnered with High Rocks, and more specifically, we're going to operate their Steel Studios facility in Richwood. It had been open in the past, but it's been closed for about 3 or 4 years now. We have partnered, again, with High Rocks so that we're able to reopen that and give something, and basically have a place for young adults to meet and learn in Richwood. The mission statement of Steel Studios is very simple. It's to provide young people in Nicholas County with the confidence to lead active lives and work toward the long-term betterment of their community. That has always been the goal of High Rocks. I've been in, a little background, I've been in Richwood since 2000. I came here as part of the Power Up initiative that was spearheaded by Coleman Powell. I came here and ran a technology center in Richwood from 2000 to about 2004, 2005. Then I taught at New River Community and Technical College till about 2009, 2010. And Pat Doversfike came about a year before me. 99. She's formed what is now called Peer Recovery Network, which is a statewide organization for at-risk individuals. And she also ran the Drop-In Center in the city of Richwood for, what, about 10 years? Yeah, easily. So, we've been in Richwood a while. When Power Up started, High Rocks was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I've always had a relationship with High Rocks. I've known Sarah Riley, the executive director of High Rocks, for 20 years. The reason why I'm excited about this partnership is that High Rocks, Five Rivers, we're part of an ARC grant, which is basically an agricultural growing capacity grant that expires the end of, well, September of this year. But ARC, and we're in the second award of this grant. So this has been in operation for about 6 years, and we're now looking at probably another 3 years. The whole goal of all of these organizations is very simple. We're trying to get young adults, middle school and the high school, and teach them that agricultural opportunities are available, and they're worthwhile, and they're basically financially rewarding. To do that, most of you may not be aware of the fact that, in 2019, well, like last year, in Richwood, we opened up 3 high tunnels. We put in our first crop, and a lot of you, I'm pretty sure, most of you have some type of farming experience. We put in our first crop late last year. Our first crop was heirloom tomatoes in our high tunnels. And we ended up selling all of those heirloom tomatoes through Cook Brothers and Turn Row, and we sold all of our tomatoes went to Pies and Pints in Fayetteville and Charleston. Our second crop was about 6,000 square feet of turnips, and that basically made us profitable. We were profitable in our first year, just off the turnips. Okay, seriously. This year, and the reason I'm telling you this is because High Rocks is doing the same things in Pocahontas County. If you look at this, you'll see in this document they mention Ruby Grow, and they also mention Appalachian, I think it's Appalachian Refresh. Those are 2 programs that, well, yeah, the Appalachian Initiative. Hold on, let me get to this page so I can explain it. Grow Appalachia. This is where I'm really excited. Grow Appalachia is a partnership that High Rocks has with Berea College. Literally, kids growing up in this area, if they stick with it, they get a full ride to Berea. Okay? We're trying to work that same program through WVU. I'm working it through West Virginia State University, which is, as most of you probably know, is a historically an HBCU. Or if you didn't know, it's one of the oldest HBCUs in the country. So all of this is happening, but the goal is to grab these kids. Just by chance, this past year, in our first growing season, we got 3 kids that are being homeschooled. They live on a 10-acre farm. These kids are great. And what they have learned, and what's nice about it, is the kids come, but also one parent comes. So this parent may know how to garden, but they don't know how to monetize what they're gardening and what they're growing. But they're listening. And it's happening. So if you look at this, one of the things we're doing this summer in partnership with High Rocks is we're going to be, hopefully we can go into the schools and attract some students to work with us during the summer, but we can teach them, because our classes are only given on Fridays. But if they can take that home and they can operate their own operation, and they have a distribution network. Whatever they grow, we will send it through Turn Row and Cook Brothers. Best example I can give you of how that works is there is a 8-year-old girl. I can't think of her name. Okay. Anyway, she's 8 years old, diabetic, homeschooled. Grows the greatest cherry tomatoes in all of eastern Nicholas County. She controls the farmer's market. She controls it. I mean, come on. An 8-year-old girl, and these things are perfectly packaged and everything. So this year, our goal is to work with her and show her how to monetize this, but also to keep her in this program, because by the time she hits middle school and then high school, she will already know how this process works. She will be able to go, she can pick, and by that time she should be able to pick and choose which college she wants to go to. Because in background, you need to be aware that WVU and West Virginia State University are working on programs, agricultural programs, to start enticing people to get back into farming, but not do it the way our grandparents did. If you must know, my grandparents come from Raleigh and Fayette counties, but I'm an Army brat. I was born in Walter Reed, I've traveled the world. I actually went to high school in Germany and started elementary school in Alaska. So what I'm getting at is this, but my roots are West Virginia, Mount Hope, okay? And My grandparents knew how to garden, okay? Come on, everybody had a garden, and we had large ones. But they just fed the community. They fed their neighborhood. They did the bartering in their neighborhood. You know, come on, Southern and Central West Virginia had a very sophisticated bartering system. But so now we just have to teach this newer generation how to monetize that. And that's where Turnrow comes into play, Cook Brothers comes into play, and just just some basic knowledge on good agricultural practices, GAP, and good hygiene practices, GIP. I mean, it's not very difficult. And in fact, we can help them, we can help local farmers here get GIP and GAP certifications, or they can roll into ours. Just to give you an idea of where we're at, Pat is going to be running the facility. She has that background. She has run a drop-in center in Ridgewood. She knows all of these kids. She knows all of these kids' parents. We have the rapport. If not directly with the kid, we know their parent. All right? And so our goal is to just get them, to attract them to downtown Ridgewood, but also have very specific programs. If you know anything about High Rocks has an array of programs. We're bringing some of those back to Ridgewood. One of the ones that really excites me is that High Rocks runs what they call the hub in Lewisburg. And it's basically a multi-use center run by teenagers. But one of the businesses they run in there, they run their own tech repair business. So, and we had the chance to visit, and you've got people in the neighborhood or in the community coming in with their laptop, coming in with their computer, and you've got a 16-year-old repairing it, or a 15-year-old repairing it. You come in, and there's a 20-year-old artist who's painting, and they're selling their art. You've got a 15-year-old that's growing, squash, and they're selling it right there. We want to provide those same opportunities in Eastern Nicholas County. So that's the program in a nutshell. So why are we here? We want permission to go to the elementary school, the middle school, as well as the high school, and tell them this is what, and talk to them, and get permission of the principal to go and talk to students, explain to them what is available. One of the attractions, and I learned this the day don't take this the wrong way, but when we opened up the Power Up Center in Ridgewood, I'll never forget, it was 2000, I had a group of 8, 10, 12-year-olds, and they were in there, and they didn't know what they were doing, but they had internet access. And I will never forget, so you've got 5 boys sitting around on various computers, because we had 20 of them, and they're sitting there, and we're giving them access to the internet. And I'll never forget, this one kid gets a response from this girl in Spain, and all he said is, "I can't type." And 5 guys flock to this computer, and they're all packing like this. 6 months later, all of them can type. Okay? That's the attraction. So one of the things we're doing on Fridays is we're going to have a movie night, which was very popular when High Rocks was open. But it's going to be supervised by Pat. And some of them already grown. Oh, Grandma Pat's going to be in trouble. But anyway, it's a place for them to meet, other than just, if you've ever been to Ridgewood and you've ever watched a ritual where they just stroll around, they just do this walking loop in Ridgewood. And all it's ever pointed out to me is you've got kids walking the streets looking for something to get into. And what happens is they get into the wrong things. This man that was here, he already described what's going on. Okay? You've got, and Pat and I, we've personally watched this. We've known each other for as long as we're both not from Ridgewood, so we both know, we both are watching the same thing, and we're saying, these kids are just wandering around aimlessly looking for something, and the only thing they're going to find is trouble. we are providing them something else. And the success of High Rocks is incredible. If you've never visited the High Rocks facility in Hillsborough, and it's technically, yeah, they say Hillsborough, but it's really not.
Mill Point?
Yeah, Mill Point.
Yeah.
If you've ever been there, yeah, if you've ever been there and you've gone up to their facility, you see what they're doing. It is incredible. They are literally empowering young women, like in ways that are just mind-boggling. Right now at this point, all but one program at High Rocks is run by graduates of their program, people who have grown up in that system. And it's amazing. So, and we want the kids in Ridgewood to have that experience. They get to go camping they go to 2 weeks of camping, two one-week camps, but they get to start interacting with people. And I've watched the ones that have gone through High Rocks in Ridgewood. They tend to be, not even 10, they're more successful than the ones that just are doing what we call the loop. That's our goal. We've been blessed. She went to private school in New England. I won't hold it against her. Okay? And I went to school in Northern California. And I was fortunate. A lot of what I'm getting at is I went through a program very similar to what High Rocks is presenting. If you've ever heard of, if you remember what was going on in the 60s, they had Upward Bound. High Rocks is basically taken Upward Bound, and the director of High Rocks, Sarah, she went through Upward Bound. So she's basically taken Upward Bound and turned it and put steroids to it. She has just grown this thing, and it is incredible to see. And we just want to bring that to Ridgewood. We want to give kids in eastern Nicholas County a chance, because
Oh, I was just going to say, the question I think is he wants to go into school.
Yeah, I was going to say, all you have to do is contact the school principals. They dictate their schedule. They are the ones that, accept people in to speak.
okay.
We don't have any restrictions on presenters going in. So you just contact each principal and they will schedule it. One of the things I really appreciate this presentation, there's two people I'm hoping that if you're not already working with, I'm going to ask them to reach out to you. And
Okay.
one is Tom Bayless, our Career Technical Education Director. We have an agriculture program with High Tunnel, and I think that it would be nice that we could maybe do some partnerships. I mean, some of our kids that are at the Career Center go down there, maybe kids that are at High Rocks, maybe they come up to the Career Center, do things.
Absolutely.
So I see a lot of partnerships.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I'm thinking is Sherry Mao. We have a food to table program, and we like to purchase local, and we purchase local absolutely as much as we can. So I'd really like for you to talk with Sherry Mao in the back and see if we can get some type of food purchasing. So we're excited about that. So you've just told us of two very powerful things that we can do to help.
She is my new best friend. She doesn't know that.
Well, and we're also going to be teaching the kids, we have a phenomenal program at the Career Center. They're going to be teaching kids how to do canning of foods and stuff. So we may be able to help partner and help you even take it even onto a new,
Can we add freeze drying?
Well, they're probably, Beth Getty, his teacher is phenomenal. So I would really like for you all to talk and see, I mean, this is some great things that could really help our kids.
We buy a lot from Cook Brothers, so that eliminates somebody.
Oh, you mean I don't have, okay, this is how convoluted it is right now. And that's one of the things we're working on. Literally as we speak, there's a letter of intent that was sent to ARC this past week, and they've already approved it, so we're now looking at putting together the budgets. And one of the things that we were doing, which was very convoluted, I literally was taking produce from Ridgewood and put it out of our cold storage facility, taking it to a cold storage facility in Fayetteville for Cook Brothers to pick up to bring back to Ridgewood.
Oh no, we can buy it direct. We can buy it direct.
Okay? Okay?
We can buy it direct. So we would like, that would be great. So if you don't mind, before you leave, get a card from
Oh,
both of my directors or information,
oh,
please.
you guys, thank you, thank you. You see this smile? Oh, thank you so much. That works.
Any other questions?
Are there charges for that summer camp?
No, no,
No,
no.
no.
And that's on Thompson Road in Hillsborough?
Yep. Yes, no charge. Basically, you just participate in the after-school and summer school programs. That's it.
Which road is Thompson Road there?
You come off the hill, okay, you come off the hill and literally you go down about 1.5 miles and Thompson Road will be on your left. And you will see
Get
us.
right into about the middle of Hillsborough.
No, you're not even, if you get to Hillsborough, you've gone too far. If you've gotten to the split, you've gone too far.
Okay.
When you come off the mountain and you hit that flat spot,
Oh, you're talking about where the High Rock,
High Rocks facility.
Yeah. Now that's for girls, that area?
Yes, yes, the camp is, but what's really interesting is that High Rocks now has 2 high tunnels. One up on Thompson Road up the top on their facility, but they also have one in Hillsborough. And in Hillsborough, they're allowing, basically, it's girls and boys that participate in their High Rock, in their Ruby Grove program. Girls are the ones that are allowed to go to camp. So even in our facility, girls and boys will be able to participate, but it's just girls that are going to camp.
Now, you mentioned about Berea College, these people can earn a full ride to Berea
Man,
College.
full ride, full. That's what blew me away. Full ride, and you would be surprised at how New River Community and Technical College was involved in that. One of the instructors there is a graduate of Berea, and she grew up in this area, and so she really worked hard on putting all of this together. She worked with Sarah Ryman, and they were working on this as far back as 2009. No one is so.
That's in Kentucky, right?
That's in Kentucky. Yeah. Yes.
Or it-
But WVU, as well as West Virginia State University, they're also looking at similar things. And you ready? Glenville has also just been recently, my understanding is they're now becoming a university, and they are going to have an extension program. And they're looking at that. Okay, the world is changing. Agriculture is big business. And West Virginia has, what always shocked me when I came back in 2000 was that I'm back in a community where I'm a 10-hour drive in a circle from 70% of the U.S. population. And we're just not seizing that opportunity. You have to understand, you know where all our turnips went? 70% of them went to Washington, D.C., the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Okay? So, and we're going to have radishes, squash, cucumbers. Corn is going to probably be sold locally. But the tomatoes, and the kick that I'm going to get when I tell this little, she's now 9, this 9-year-old, that her tomatoes may be going to Pittsburgh, I know her eyes are going to light up. Okay? And that's the key, because farming is just, I grew up in Monterey County, and most people have this impression of California that it's all high tech and it's Hollywood. Do you know what the #1 industry is in California? It's called agriculture. And I mean, and it's #1, and the other 2 are not even a close second and third. All right? You just have to, if you've never driven Interstate 5, if you've never seen the Big Valley in California, then you really just don't understand. You've gotten a warped picture of California. We all grew up, I'm sure, we all grew up watching the television show, The Big Valley. Believe me, it exists. Okay? It's 805 miles long. I've driven it several times. I went to college in Oregon. All right? And it's just totally different. If you're involved in agriculture, you've probably seen all of the UC Davis extension or heard of it. You don't realize that UC Davis literally floods the Sacramento River Basin every year to grow like rice for like 20 miles. So 20 miles before you even get to Sacramento, all you're doing is driving through a flooded area that's growing rice bed, that has rice beds. I mean, California is all about agriculture. My son went to UC Davis. Okay.
I have a sister-in-law in Sacramento Valley. Sacramento.
Right.
Is that valley, you know, that flood, is that east of
It's west.
Highway 1?
Oh, yeah, well, Highway 1, oh yeah, it's definitely west. If your sister lives off of Interstate 5, what I'm talking about is what we're talking about is west of Interstate 5, and if you take what's called Interstate 80, 80 leads from San Francisco directly to Sacramento. Yeah. 80 actually brings you all the way here. But.
Yeah, almost all those valleys, unless it's right along the coast, like you said, agriculture.
I grew up in the artichoke capital of the world. Okay? And every time you look at iceberg lettuce, this is what used to frustrate me. I came to West Virginia, and I'm going into Foodland, and I'm buying lettuce that was grown in the valley I grew up in. I'm like, I traveled 2,800 miles to get lettuce. I could have stayed.
That's the same way here. We have power generated here at the dam, but it goes up into New England. Rather than supplying, you know, the city here or the state.
Yeah, yeah. It's so we need to capture that. And if you just pay attention to what's going on locally, literally, I was talking to a banker, and I'll end with this. Most people don't realize that the two countries at war, they grow 21% of all the wheat consumed in the world. So you know what's going on in the Midwest and in the Big Valley? Oh, farmers are signing up real fast to start growing. They're getting more public lands. They're opening up more public lands so they grow soy and wheat. Yeah. Because the opportunity is there. And a lot of people don't realize something else about most of the western states. All of them. 70 to 80% of that land is public land.
Any further questions?
I'd like to say one thing.
Yes,
I'm also the local AmeriCorps worker.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. She coordinates. She is AmeriCorps member, but she's also coordinating all of the AmeriCorps projects in that part right there.
You sound Massachusetts.
Please,
Yes.
the only saving grace that I have in this conversation is that Tom Brady grew up in the Bay Area. Okay? The rest, please do not mention the Patriot Star.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, and Mrs. Dover for coming and being with us and bringing us up to date on High Rocks. Wish you much success with that program, and we look forward to blending in with the school system.
Oh, I'm going back to pick up cards now.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 5 on this evening's agenda is approval items, or action items. Approval of the curriculum adoption for science as follows, and it lists those there, and I'm assuming this is Dr. Lee, is that correct? Okay, any questions for Dr. Lee? The only question I would ask is, a committee of people have worked on this?
Yes. We have representatives from all the school sizes and program levels.
Okay, and we're adopting elementary K through 5, middle 6 through 8, and high school 9 through 12. And list the different textbooks there. Mr. Bruce, what do you think?
They sent me the book to look at.
We trust your
I
judgment.
approve.
We trust your judgment.
Looks
Is this a
good.
new curriculum?
Yeah, every 6 years for a new adoption.
Are there any questions for Dr. Lee in regard to the adoption of the science textbooks that have been recommended by our school personnel to Dr. Lee?
Is it actual textbooks or is it just like a classroom set and then?
They're all a hybrid program. The elementary one actually comes like our health newsletter that comes, you'll probably recognize, it looks like a weekly reader. They get the flyer, and then there are hands-on investigations that go with that. Then at the middle level, the textbook is actually a consumable piece. And then at the high school, they can get a class set with the online resource piece for the rest.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Lee in regard to the science textbooks? Thank you, Dr. Lee. Item B is approval to place on 20-day comment period, Neola policy section 9000 on relations. Mrs. Atkins.
Yes, those policies were loaded in your packets, but I'll entertain any questions that you have.
Let me find it. I have one question.
Sure.
Next to the last one.
Advertising and commercial activity?
No, Citizen Advisory Committees.
Okay.
That's not it. I'm sorry. Let me find my notes. School visitors. Next to the last sentence.
Let me give a chance to pull it up here. Yes.
Mine keeps disappearing.
The next to the last sentence says, is that your question because it's disappearing?
Yeah, where it has a, discuss the situation, parentheses, with the principal, X,
Oh, that one.
with the superintendent, and
Right.
the option, what is that?
Okay, so Neola gives us a template and we can select options, and when we cleaned that up, they just didn't take that out of there. I'll take it out of there before we put it on comment.
That's all.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Atkins. Approval of the 2022 fifth grade fun run at Battle Run. It's to occur Tuesday, October the 11th. I'm assuming that's...
I know that's early. I know I'm asking for approval early, but we start planning now in order to have everything set for fall, because school starts and you have a meeting and then it starts. So that's why I'm asking for approval this early. It's the fun run that they've had since 2017. We didn't have it the year of COVID, 2020. But this past year we had it again, the kids had a great time. So we'd like to do it again.
I just thought since I was off at the beginning of the meeting with August, maybe...
No, well, when I asked him to put it on the agenda, she was like, Sherry, it's April. I know.
Any questions in regard to the fun run for fifth grade students? Thank you, Mrs. Mel.
Thank you.
Approval of the MOU with Emily McPherson for speech language service pending West Virginia Department of Education approval. Mrs. Atkins?
Sure, I loaded this in your board packets today, but I'll pass you out a copy in case you didn't get a chance to look at it. This is our standard contract that we do when we contract for speech services. We had a speech pathologist who's retiring at the end of the year, and then she went on leave for the rest of the year. And so this has put quite a burden on our existing staff, so this person will just provide those services to take the burden off the existing staff until we can get that position replaced.
Is it a difficult chore to find speech pathologists?
Yes.
We had this back in the early
Yes.
2000s as well.
Yes.
Was she a assistant.
Yes, she's a speech language assistant, and this is a new program that they're trying. I think we have one employee now, and so they're people who they haven't finished their master's degree, they have their undergraduate degree, and they're going on to master's degree, but they can do some work as long as they're under a
program.
Yeah.
What funds are these paid for? Are they local or are they special funds, Mr. Hess?
Pardon me?
What funds is this position being paid for? Is it regular general funds?
Just out of our regular.
This-
Probably, because
I know
this is.
the answer
Oh,
to
I'm
this.
sorry.
That's
I
okay.
see Mr. Jones back there.
That's all right. I love it when you ask Kevin, not me, but I know the answer. So I'll answer. This position was federally funded,
This one's federally funded?
and so I would assume that we would continue to pay this position from that money, but I'll need to check with Kevin because we are, I guess, continuing to pay for her sick leave. So we'll have to work that out, but the position that she's gonna do the hours for is a federally funded position.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to the MOU with Emily McPherson for speech language services? Thank you, Mrs. Atkins. Action items A, B, C, and D. Is there a motion to approve action items A, B, C, and D as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Berry moves. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Amick seconds. Any further discussion in regard to action items A, B, C, or D? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 6, consent items, finance, payment of current invoices and contracts. Mr. Hess.
Yes, sir. Do have a few utilities that we cut checks here just a little bit ago. Do you have any questions on those or any that were in your packet? These will be due before our next board meeting. Trigon Imaging System, $43,000. What is that? That is a plasma printer, or a laser, Tom can tell you. Oh, did we? We approved the bid for it a couple of meetings ago. What's the PO for it? Right. Yes, yeah. It's a big printer, right? Yes. There's several lines that just say reimbursed beside it. To individuals?
I think it's 11 or 12 of them.
Yeah, that was for the college program, dual credit college tuition program. We were reimbursing some of those students their fees.
Why do they need a porta john at RHS Field?
Is it?
I don't think the restrooms have ever been repaired.
The baseball, it's a...
The
Is it
baseball
Pratt
field.
Field? Pratt Field?
Yeah, we've been doing that from the beginning because, yeah, because
Oh, is that Pratt Field?
they've
Oh,
never been
okay.
repaired.
Okay. That explains it. Couldn't figure that one out.
There's 2 flood payments, is that for flood insurance?
Yes, those are for 2 buildings.
Which 2 buildings is that?
That's the field house at the Richmond High School Stadium and the Red Brick Gym.
I'm assuming the Red Brick Gym's the most expensive one?
Actually, no.
No? You're kidding.
The
Wow.
coverages are minimal on the Red Brick Gym. We don't have very much in the way of contents coverage there.
No.
But mostly the field house is more expensive.
The field house is the representative football.
It's where the ticket booth, or the concession stand and weight room and all that stuff. Any other questions?
The FEMA flood policy, is that an insurance?
Yeah, that's flood policy that we have on the two buildings at the Richwood, the field house and the Redford.
That's what you all talk,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
It looks like we have, well, did you say something about all the reimbursements? It looks like those were, was that the students?
That's the students. Yeah.
Or, I didn't know what you
It was tuition, books that they had paid up front, or their
It was
parents.
like the 9 that graduated.
They are, it was one of the first ones that went through, yes.
Okay. I recognize some of those names.
Mhm. Okay, so if you have no other questions, we have one contract, and it's with Barksdale, and that is for yearbook. Printing for Valley River Elementary, a total of $3,060. And that's a fee that the school will pay for through the sale of textbooks or some type of fundraiser. And then, under miscellaneous, we have a memorandum of understanding between the Nicholas County Board and the Webster County Board. And it just simply allows some of the students of Webster County to come over and use our facilities, our track facilities, and just kind of lays out the parameters for that and the procedures that they would follow in order to do that. No fees associated with that, just basically permission by the respective principal and supervision by an employee of Webster County.
And that's for either field?
Either field of their choice.
But that won't interfere with our students,
No,
correct?
there's a provision in there that says that our activities take precedence.
And they have to get permission or for
Correct,
the time
correct,
it's set up.
correct.
Is their track, they have trouble with their track?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the quality of their track or if they have the same type of facilities we do. Track facilities.
They've been doing this before. I mean, this is not new.
They've come in the
They've
past.
been using it, but this is just solidifying.
First
I
time
understand.
Outline again, you're saying.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's brought to my attention, so I just wanted to make sure that both boards of education was on the same page before something like that happened.
Plus, did they bring their little basketball teams over to practice up there?
Well, that's the Little League, and they're practicing at some, it's not school property.
It's not property.
Yes.
And that's all I have for finance, if you have any other questions.
I do, okay, kind of refresh my memory. When we have budget season, we're going to approve the levy rates on the 19th. We're going to enter the levy rates, I should say, or whatever it is. And then when is budget due?
Budget is due to the state at the end of May. And so my goal is to bring that, our budget to you for approval or adoption on the second meeting in May. So I would like to have a workshop with you guys about 2 weeks prior to that, around the first week of May, last week of April. And sit down and we'll run through what projections I have and what revenues I have calculated, as we traditionally do. I've got a date set picked out if you want me, but I'm flexible. Anywhere that last week of April, first week of May.
What date do you have?
I have to go look at my calendar.
If you go look and then maybe when we get down here, just take a look at this. What you're saying.
Yeah, that's about the time our calendars are tied up pretty tight, probably.
Okay.
Maybe we can work a day in there.
Squeeze it in somewhere.
Yeah.
Which brings another thing, anything in the spring, if you might contact the schools of any events that we might need to know about, board members to attend, and maybe get that information together for us. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Yes, sir.
Because graduation's coming up next month as well, right?
Right. I think that's on the 20th and the 23rd of May.
The calendar says 20, I think.
20th for Nicholas County High and the 23rd for Richwood. And my understanding is at the Armory for Nicholas on Friday and at the football field in Richwood on Monday
Correct.
for Richwood High. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming we're going to gym to train over there, right?
Yes.
Stay with the calendar, right? Okay.
We have a contract, or consent items, A is the only one. Any further discussion or any questions? Is there a motion to approve consent item A as presented? Mrs. Coughlin moves, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion regarding consent item A? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, when you return to your desk, the motion passes unanimously. Personnel, Mrs. Atkins, Madam Superintendent, board members, is there a need for an executive session?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Mrs. Atkins.
All right, Chad, before you, the updated personnel agenda. The changes are highlighted in yellow, and I have made an updated copy available to the public and members of the press. But I will read the changes. Under professional, Cody Baber, employing the position of English teacher at Nicholas County High School, effective at the beginning of the 22-23 school year. Under service, there's a change in the effective date for Deanna Smith. She'll be effective upon hire of her replacement. And then Eugenia Dawn Brown, employing the position of Secretary 3, Accountant 3 at the Nicholas County Board of Education Central Office, effective April 6, 2022. Under Service Extracurricular, we removed the ESY Special Education teachers, but it is my understanding that there will be recommendations for the next board meeting. Also under Professional Extracurricular, Ashley Wall, employing the position of head girls basketball coach at Summersville Middle School, effective upon completion of any applicable WBSSAC, WBDE requirements. And that would just be, for her, that would just be AED or CPR training. She is certified, but they have to have the AED and CPR training annually, and she will probably have to renew that before the start of her season. Under consent, Matt Bailey resigns his position of Journey of Hope counselor at Golly River Elementary, effective April 4th, 2022. And Aaron Woodruff resigns his position as science teacher at Summersville Middle School, effective April 4th, 2022. And you also, on page 3, have a leave request from an employee. I will not read that aloud to protect their privacy.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to the personnel list that you've been presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda presented this evening? Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion regarding the personnel agenda that's presented? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Item 9 this evening, Superintendent's information, construction, planning, architectural update.
Last week, I've met with the architects as well as a team from this office to look at options of making adjustments to both schools to better meet policy 6200 guidelines. We had good conversation. One of the things that's very important to me, and and I believe to this board, is to keep the look and feel of both facilities as best we can, because that's something that's been presented to the community. So in looking at the facilities and meeting policy 6200, they're working to see what adjustments can be made. You know, are there certain materials that's being used that maybe we can use half the amount of materials, maybe not as much stone everywhere, but it's maybe, you know, lesser amounts. So the architects are working. You know, it's going to take a lot of back and forth reviews of all the possibilities, and then once it gets to an acceptable level, and what we believe is an acceptable level to meet, you know, fall within the bounds of what we can afford financially, I will bring it back to this board and ask to move forward with bids.
Is there hope that some of this inflation might settle down and cause, help the bids?
There's hope of that, because some other bids are coming in, you know, closer to projected target. One of the challenges, you know, we had it drop down to just 3 bidders in the Richwood area. If anyone has housing, that's one of the challenges we're hearing. People are, when you get into remote areas, they have more difficulty getting things to bid out. And, you know, I did make phone calls. I asked people, you know, to look, let me know if there's, you know, housing rentals or, you know, camper spots or whatever. The more information that I can gather for the Richwood area, the better off we're going to be, because then, you know, we'll make that available to the architects so that when people are bidding, that they know that these are possibilities. But, you know, I called around. I know that houses that have maybe 4 bedrooms, you know, something like that would be, people will be interested in. They're interested in the area maybe for riding 4-wheelers, hunting, fishing, things like that. So if anybody has, you know, ideas, I asked a real estate, you know, agent, you know, to help me look. That was a couple months ago. So again, if anyone has ideas of housing for these potential contractors, please let me know, and I will pass that information along. That may help us out some. So, you know, right now, one of the challenges is definitely the time to get some of the materials. That's a very big challenge.
So what happens with that if they're having problems getting the materials? Is that a big problem with the contractors bidding? Is they're afraid they're not going to be able to get the materials?
It is, and volatility, yes. So 50+ weeks out on some materials. Then some of the contractors, when they were trying to place the bid, the dollar amounts for materials were only guaranteed for 24 hours. So the contractors were taking a very big risk because, you know, the people that they were trying to, you know, get material bids from, they weren't willing to hold those prices. So it made it a pretty big risk for the contractors and the subcontractors. So, you know, it's very challenging, but we're working forward. The architects knows it's a priority for us to make these revisions as quickly as possible, being as thorough as possible on all aspects of construction, to see how we may be able to meet this budget without making major changes.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the SBA, there's like requirements that, like there's really nothing the board can do as far as trying to help alleviate some of these things that these contractors are facing as far as not being able to get materials, and as far as I know that they were allowed, you know, so many days during a contract. If they can't get the work done, then they can get kind of fine for it,
Liquidated damages.
liquidated damages.
Yeah, that's a clause that we're required to have. I've asked them to look at that to see if there's anything because
Is that an
there's-
SBA requirement? That
there's a lot of, I'm not exactly sure which it is. I don't know if it's SBA, I don't know. if
That's
it's-
pretty standard language in
FEMA or
contracts
what?
of that size.
Yeah, the architects told us that the liquidated damages part is something that is an absolute must-have in the contract, and I'm not sure what it's dictated by.
Well, I mean, I could see that in a normal contract with normal happenings going on, but, you know, this is a little bit of a different situation we're in right now with the volatility of the markets and everything. I mean, I think we might maybe get a little bit of a better bid if, you know, they weren't so concerned that they're going to be,
Well,
you know,
the construction manager and the architect both told us that, so I did not dig deeper to see if it was something that is considered a best practice or if it's actual requirement. I don't know. I can check to see if it is, but I would be reluctant to go against anything the architect and construction manager says, because they're the ones guiding us. It's going to keep us within, you know, those guidelines. But we have to look at all possible options at this point. You know, it's just troubling times, and March was probably the worst time it could have been for this bid opening to occur because of everything that's happened. They said it's been the highest spikes in, you know, inflation that's ever been seen, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, percentage of that was just plain fear of what might happen rather than actual cost. It was like, what, 30 or 40% they added on to what they thought it would cost?
Well, we've had, you know, from the construction of the school was designed with an escalation amount of at least 4% or higher, which far exceeded the requirements of what the SBA had on escalation. So they were playing it safe with our projects to have the buffer of escalation built in. So no one, yes, I anticipated that we would come in higher than what their original projected cost was. But I nor the contractors or the construction manager they were all pretty alarmed at what those bids came in that day. It's just something that was absolutely unforeseen. But I feel confident. We're working. They're working hard. We're communicating. I communicate daily with the architects and construction managers, usually multiple times a day. So we have a lot of conversations, and I feel confident we will get it resolved. We'll have beautiful schools built, and we'll be okay. It's just unfortunate that we've had this type of situation, but no one has a crystal ball.
How much money's left?
I can't quote to you how much is left. I don't have that on me. We'll get back with you. Next board meeting, we can do a report.
That'd be the first place to start, wouldn't it?
Well, we have that. That's something the construction managers and everyone's looking at, but I don't have it with me and prepared to speak to you about it right now. But yes, the construction managers and everybody's looking at that right now.
The SBA will never approve anything that does not at least meet 6,200, will they?
No, I didn't say that. There's a possibility of waivers to go below 6,200. 6,200 is a State Board of Education policy that has recommended guidelines for the construction of new schools. So in those guidelines that are established, that's what they want us to go by. But there's possibilities of waivers to 6,200 as well, or so that. But I don't want to ask for any type of waivers and do anything less than. That's the reason that you know, we must go forward with at minimum meeting 6,200 guidelines. We went above and beyond 6,200 guidelines for both complexes because we had extra money, and we were able to incorporate 7 schools into this construction instead of just 3. and we had extra money, so I wanted to do nice things and give extra to our students. But if we don't have the extra money, then we scale it back to 6,200 as best we can.
Well, I think whatever happens, the most important thing is the education of the students, and I think that should take priority over, anything else. I think the buildings themselves and the curriculum, and I think that should have the priority.
Yep. I agree.
I don't have anything to back this, but I would say, this is just me, but the cost of fuel will dictate the whole economy.
Yeah, they said that's one of the problems, yes. The fuel and the availability of products by, I guess, things associated with petroleum and so many things used. I mean, there's just so much involved in it, and that's why the construction manager has been very, very good to explain and to, look at projections, try to gauge what's happening. We'll be okay. We will figure out how to get it done. Again, I want the facilities to be nice. I didn't want just average, looking facilities. I want schools that we can be proud of in this county for generations to come. And but we'll meet the standards at minimum, and hopefully, exceed them.
Anything further for the superintendent regarding the construction plan? Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Item 9, board reports. The SESC, we will not meet for another 2 weeks, so there's nothing to report at this time. Bright Horizons, Mrs. Kaufman.
Yep, they won't meet for a couple more weeks.
A couple more weeks till you all meet.
But we do have students attending there now.
We have Nicholas County students attending there now. That's good. Okay. Madam Secretary, any delegations?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Items for future agendas. Anybody? Board members? Items?
The balance in the FEMA account. But she's going to take care of that, so that's already handled.
Okay. I'll go ahead and put it down. I'm going to write it down here.
Tom, when are you going to bring your crew in?
Talking to Kim, I think it's the first week of May, Kim.
I think so.
Okay. If you can look at your calendars, the last week of April, the first week of May, we already have a board meeting on the 2nd of May. It looks like the regularly scheduled meeting. And if you can look in there and see if you have any dates that we can meet together to go over the budget.
Did you? Kevin, did you?
I did look. I put it on my calendar for April the 28th. Maybe a day meeting, if that's possible. But I'm flexible that week or the first of the following week, whatever works for you guys.
So this would probably just, it's more like a work session just to go through the budget preparation, what you're doing with that?
Right, yeah, it's always just been, usually it has been a day meeting for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours.
How does it look for everybody on April the 28th, say morning or afternoon or evening?
What day is that, did you say?
I think it's on Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Roy, you good with that? Okay. How about in any certain times of the day?
Open all day.
Open all day.
I mean, it'll be all day.
Okay. Others, April the 28th.
Probably morning would be, when our mind's fresher, hopefully.
April the 28th. Kevin, is 10 o'clock okay?
I think 10 o'clock will be fine.
10
Yeah,
o'clock?
before noon.
Till noon or something like that? Is that okay with everybody?
This is budget.
Budget. And right now, we just called a work session now, and Madam Secretary, you can notice that meeting. You know, you might want to put personnel or finance should something come up that we need to approve, but we have a board meeting the following Monday. So just put those on the agenda as well. And you'll notice the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that will be April the 28th at 10 a.m. here at the board office. I'd like to remind board members that this Thursday, April the 7th, is the training for the School Boards Association for this quadrant of the state, 12 counties, and it is at 6 p.m., I think. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
I think it's from 6 to 8.
Yeah, 6 to 8.
We eat at 6.
6 o'clock.
6 is the most important.
That's the most important one.
That's one you want to be on time.
Yeah, you'll be on time for
I
that.
think it is 6 to 8.
6 to 8
Yeah, I
p.m.?
looked at it, I think it's working over to.
All right.
Why it is.
Well, that's nothing to me. Okay. All right, future meeting dates, special personnel hearing meetings on Monday, April the 18th, 2022, here at the board office, starting at 5 p.m. That's April the 18th, that's Monday. And Mrs. Atkins, you will notify us
Yes.
if those hearings are to occur? If they're not?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then remember, on the 19th we'll be meeting at 2 p.m. on Monday, the 19th of April. We reconvene the March the 14th meeting and close it out, and then we open the actual regularly scheduled meeting after that. And that's April the 19th at 2 o'clock, and should be out here by 5. Then we have a regularly scheduled meeting Tuesday. Oh, that, we just went over that, didn't we? Sorry about that. Okay, anything else? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Mr. Amy Boucher, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we're closed out at 6:29 p.m.